Hello, my name is Pia Krook-Larsen and welcome to my YouTube channel. I have recently got my hands on the Spellbinders Quick Trimmer and I am actually trying it out for the first time, making this Christmas card. We're going to play with hot foil. And I can see they've got these two foil trimmers, one for foil and one for paper. And the top trimmer guide have these cutting slots to use. I'm going to use the Christmas Foliage Background from Spellbinders to create this card. It's not a completely background, it's half, but still getting to cut the correct piece sizes. These foils are so alive when you are handling it. So this trimmer guide, I have really big expectations to it. So I hope that it will fulfill them. So I'm using Spellbinders Matte Gold. I love this colour. It's gorgeous. I love it even more than the shiny gold. I'm placing the foil between, so I've got the trimmer guide on top. Now the good thing is that before you put your foil plate, your glimmer plate, on top of the foil directly and you risk getting scratches in the foil. Now you can lay the glimmer plate on top of the trimmer guide. Now I find out that it was best to line the plate with one of the cutting slots, and then I can move the look-through trimmer guide in order to place the piece I'm going to cut and get the right size, and then I can use one of the cutting knives. Of course I'm using the one for foil. Now to get the other side, again I'm lining up my hot foil plate, my glimmer plate, to line up one of the cutting slots, and then again I can just run the knife through one of the cutting slots and I've got a perfect size piece of foil. I must admit, I actually really like this tool. It makes a great deal of sense for me, and it really takes out the liveliness of the foil when you are cutting, and I really appreciate that. Again, I'm doing exactly the same. I'm using the cutting slots in the trimmer guide. Now you've got measurements on the trimmer guide and the cutting mat, but honestly I don't use them. I may someday find them useful, but at this moment I don't. I just use the plate as a guide so I know what size to get, and then I'm moving the trimmer guide around as I need to get the correct size of foil. There we go. I'm lining up again, making sure I've got a foil piece that's the correct size, and then make the cut. Now the leftover pieces are really neat cut pieces of foil which I can use for example, sentiments. Easy. I am going to make a red Christmas card this time, and I have to foil this glimmer plate twice in order to get it covers the complete card front, and I'm using the hinge method for this. This technique is the best of best when it comes to hot foiling. It is so useful. Now I've got my pre-cut pieces of foil and I can just scoot it in and then lift back the glimmer plate so it lays on top of the foil. Now always remember that the pretty side of the foil is upwards against you so you can see it. I'm using thin washi tape to keep the glimmer plate in place and getting it ready. Now meanwhile I have the the Glimmer hot foil system warm and ready, and I can just push the timer button. Now I have, for some reason, I think it's my die cutting machine which doesn't have the same pressure in the middle, so I am putting on a circle die cut of cardstock before I lay on my sandwich. And here we go. Also in my sandwich I also need a piece of cardstock. It's the backing of a paper pad to get the correct pressure in my die cutting machine. Now I've speed up the process, or sort of cut out the part where we're waiting for the Glimmer hot foil system to get warm and ready. And now I'm using this Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. I also have a Big Shot, and I sort of varies sometimes which one I'm using, but when I'm hot foiling I usually do use my Platinum 6. I'm running it through slowly, just back and forth, and keeping my thumb on top of the sandwich to make sure it doesn't get a speed bump. I know that some die cutting machines don't make speed bumps, but others do, and my Platinum 6 do have a tendency to make the speed bump when I'm finished running it through. Because I'm using the hinge method, I can very, very carefully release the washi tape bits, and then I can peek underneath to see if it's done a really good job in foiling on the cardstock. And that is why the hinge method is so good. It's brilliant. I'm peeking in and I'm not satisfied, and it is actually sort of in the middle. So this time I am putting my plate, my hot plate, glimmer plate, on the other end of the warming pad, and I'm not using my round cardstock piece. And again, I've sped up the process so you don't have to get bothered with just waiting while I'm talking. So now it's ready and I can run it through for a second time. Again, I run it back and forth, keeping my thumb on the top of the sandwich to make sure I don't get any speed bump, and put it back in the Glimmer hot foil system in the docking. And now we can take a peek again. Now this time, because I've done it twice, I am looking quite quick and I can see it's okay. I've got a little bit of overfoiling in the ends here, but no worries, we can easily take care of that. I am always using the Mono sand eraser, a very stiff painting brush, and a microfiber cloth. That is my method of removing overfoiling. I always use the brush first, and if that cannot remove all of it, then I carefully, very lightly, use the sand eraser to remove the last bits. And finally, I just rub it over with my microfiber cloth. That just works as a charm every single time. There we go. Now we've got this second half to do. So I am going to align my glimmer plate, my hot plate, before I put on the foil, because I need to see where I'm placing this glimmer plate to make it correctly or perfectly in the pattern. And again, because I'm using the hinge method, this makes it so easy. Well, at least I believe and think it's so easy. I really do use this technique very, very often. Again, I can scoot in my piece of foil and it's placed perfectly. All I need now is a little bit of washi tape to make sure that the glimmer plate stays in place when I'm putting it on the heating pad. This time I'm choosing not to use the round circle die cut in my sandwich. I sort of think it's best not to add it in the beginning, but I'll see if I have to do it twice like I did the first time. But time will tell. That's one of the great things about hot foiling. You never know what result you're going to get. And you have to try out and try again, because it's not always the same result you get. It depends on the type of cardstock. It depends on the color of the foil you're using. There are so many varies that can sort of depend on. It's so many variation that can have significance for the end result. Let's see, just carefully releasing the washi tape, and I can take a peek and see if the result is satisfactory. And let's see, the foil is sticky as always, and I'm peeking in. I can see no, it didn't get good foiling here in the middle. So I am placing down my glimmer plate again and putting on the washi tape, and as before I'm choosing the other end of the heating pad and I'm adding the die cut circle, placing it where I believe I need a bit more pressure. Now the reason I'm using a circle die cut is that I don't need more pressure out in the sides, because if I use a rectangular piece I risk overfoiling in the other places, and I don't really want that. So that's the reason I use a circle die cut. As before, just back and forth and putting it back in the docking station. There we go. And let's see what the result we got. I always find this so exciting to see how it turned out. Let's see. It's not completely perfect, but it's a lot better than before. So now we've got the front piece done, but I can see I still got a bit of overfoiling down here, same places as before. And as I did the other, I am using my mono sand eraser and a very stiff painter's brush. Now this brush, I have no idea where I've got it from. It's an oldie. I've had it for so many years, and sometimes you just realize that some crafting tools you've had for many years can have new use, and it's so great. So don't chuck anything out. You never know when you can use it for something else. Now we're going to create the sentiment, and I'm choosing to combine these two glimmer plates. I've got the essential circles, which is dots, a circle of dots, very pretty, in combination with Yana's Christmas sentiments. I must say Yana's handwriting is very pretty, and I love these sentiments glimmer plates that she has made for Spellbinders. I know she's got more coming now. I'm very excited to see what that is going to be. I'm using the Happy Holidays because that one fits perfectly within the circle. Let's see. I need to use the broad washi tape again, and the little pieces. Now, when you use washi tape on top of already foiled areas, you may risk the washi tape stickiness to remove some of your foil. So I don't want to use a too big a piece. And also I've got these pieces, leftover pieces, that I can reuse for the circle and sentiment. Now I'm cutting off a little piece in the top because I'm going to use the hinge method again, and that's why I need a sort of straight edge of the foil when I'm placing the hinge. I'm also using the grid lines on my cutting mat. The reason for this is that I'm going to place the sentiment, and I want the sentiment to be placed correctly. I don't want it to be crooked, but I will show you later. You see what I'm talking about. Now I'm shortening my washi tape piece because I want to limit how much I'm going to have to tape over the already foiled areas. And I've got it there, and I'm making sure that the washi tape has a good grip on the circle die. No, not die, circle glimmer plate. Oh, I have to remember all the terms for all these different. I can just carefully scoot in the hot foil piece. Now, you might think, what in earth is she doing? The piece is not big enough, but don't worry, because I've got the other half here, and I can just scoot that in as well. It doesn't matter. As long as I've got the whole area sort of covered in foil, it doesn't matter if it's two different pieces. To help me align the sentiment, I have drawn a line on the back side of the glimmer plate. This line can help me to get a perfect position of the glimmer plate. And that is why I'm using the grid lines of my cutting mat, because those are going to help me place my sentiment. Now, if I don't want to just eyeball it, I can use my T-ruler as a guide. And that way I have a better view of the alignment of the sentiment to place it. There we go. And also, when I'm holding down on top of the ruler, I can keep both glimmer hot plates in place until I get washi tapes on to keep them to stay put. There we go, little pieces. Also again to avoid too much washi tape on top of the already foiled areas. And now it's ready to be put back on the heating pad. There we go. Because this is in the center of the card, I am placing my circle die cut again to use in my sandwich. And then we are ready to go. It's ready, and I can take my die cutting machine and run it through. There we go. When you pull out the heating pad from the docking, you also risk a sort of movement or shift on the heating pad. So the more carefully you can do that, the better. Because otherwise you may risk what I call double foiling. Not over foiling, but double foiling, or you can also say shadow foiling. Let's see. There we go. And can take a peek of the result. Now, I'm using the hinge method, and if I had been more careful when removing this, I could actually had run it through a second time, but I decided that this was well enough. I have a little tiny bit of overfoiling in the middle of the sentiment, a bit of the dotted circles, but as before, that is an easy fix, just to do as before. I love to say before, apparently. Well, there we go. Let's see. Now, next up, I decided to give my card a bit of colour. So I'm going to use my Faber-Castell Polychromos colour pencils. First up, I'm putting on a layer of white. That is sort of a base. And it's my intention to make this white base so that the green colour will show more clearly because of the red cardstock. And I'll speed up the process because this is a quite simple thing to do. It doesn't take long, but still, if you were going to hear me talk all the time, you might get a bit tired of it, especially all my English mistakes, as I'm trying to do my best English and remember all the English words. There we go. Now it's almost ready. Now we need to finish off the card. Now, I live in Denmark and we use European standard size cards, A6, whereas in America you use A2. And that means that most dies and hot glimmer plates are made for A2 American card sizes. Now, I usually try to convert the American card size to the European. And this is what I'm doing right now. First up, I'm cutting my card piece with a rectangular die which matches European size. There we go. And then next up, I'm going to use a frame die from a Danish brand called Simple and Basic. Because this frame die is going to hide the top and the bottom where I don't have any foiling. So that is what I call an easy fix in converting to European card size. I've got the same red cardstock colour running through with the frame rectangular die, and then I've got these two pieces which I can glue together. When I'm working with liquid glue, I always use a piece of backing from double-sided tape sheets, and I use that, a big piece, because then I don't get any glue residue on my cutting plate, because I actually do like my cutting plate, and it's a bit too expensive if I need to change my cutting mat too often, because I get it all dirty and gluey. So that's why I use this piece of backing, because if I've got any excess glue smooching out, it will get on this piece of backing paper instead. That's it. Now we got to get the card base ready. But while the glue is drying, I'm placing a piece of glass. It's something my husband has made for me. He's a glacier. So I've got a few pieces of glass and I love to use them because they're heavy and you can look through so you don't risk anything shifting. Okay, back to the card base. Now I want to have a gold glimmer on the card base, and I'm cheating. I'm so cheating right now. I could have used a piece of Glimmer cardstock, but instead I've got this really old roll of Glimmer tape, and I'm just adding them on the edges of the card base. Quite simple. And honestly, if this Christmas card is going to someone not crafty, they wouldn't notice. They wouldn't. So this is like a quick fix, easy fix, and I get to use something from my old stash. And that's always good. It's always good to use something old. Now, the last bit, the end here, I use my nail to sort of press up against the other piece, and then I can use a scalpel to carefully cut the end. And there we go. I've got what you can call a fake Glimmer background. I also want some dimensions, so I've got a piece of craft foam that I'm going to put in between the card front and the card base. And here, as well before, I'm using the liquid glue, and I'm working on top of this piece of backing. Now, liquid glue, I'm using my finger to sort of squish it out, because when you've got these piles or big blobs of glue, it doesn't really look good on the cardstock when it's I don't know if you can say bleed through. It doesn't, but it makes the cardstock sort of too moist. And I'm using my piece of glass again to put it in pressure while it dries. Now I've cut out the drying part, so I cheated here as well, so you don't have to wait for that. And the other side gets some glue as well. Let's see. And this time I actually don't use my finger to spread out the glue, because the card base cardstock is heavier than the card front. And there we go. Just line it up. Now the last little detail is white. White dots with a Signo pen. Now in the hot foil pattern, there are these little berries, and I decided that with the green, it needed just a little bit more splash of colour. So I'm using my Signo Unit White pen, and I'm testing that it's alive, because you know, sometimes you have this where it just don't want to come with anything, get the colour running. So I'm always testing on my finger. And there we go, feel out the little dots, and then it's just need to dry, and then I would say we are almost at the end of this card. I would so very much appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can click here on my profile picture, the round picture, and give this video a thumbs up. I'll also link to some other videos about hot foiling that you might think is interesting. Other than that, I wish you a very good day. Have fun crafting.